Alright, folks, if you could just spare me one fucking second to figure out how the fuck to pronounce this band's name, that would be spectacular. Because guess what? I'm a fucking dumb white Canadian asshole, and I don't know things, and I want to know things. I don't want this to be another Greg Prosciutto-sized situation. I want to know how to pronounce this guy's fucking name.
You say Vildhjarta.
Vildhjarta.
And I say Vildhjarta.
Vildhjarta?
You say Vildhjarta.
He says Vildhjarta, and you say Vildhjarta? Are there two different... That doesn't help at all! Vildhjarta. Not Vildhjarta, which is absolutely unironically what I was going to say. Good to know. Alright, let's officially get started then. Masstaden under Vatten, which I have definitely not pronounced correctly, is the sophomore studio album from the aforementioned Vildhjarta, and also their first studio album in nearly 10 fucking years. Which is kind of weird in retrospect because these guys had a lot of hype and anticipation building and swelling around them 10 years ago. They were seen as one of the hottest new bands in the Djent movement in progressive metal, and then they just kind of dropped off the map. I mean, they did an EP in 2013, but nobody really ever talks about that EP, and as far as I can tell, these guys didn't do really any touring at all. If they did, they sure as hell didn't come to my neck of the woods. So yeah, I don't know. Here's what I do know, though. This new studio album picks up exactly, directly even, where the previous studio album left off, touching on some of the same lyrical themes and concepts, expanding on the same influences and sounds and spices left over from Meshuggah and Opeth and Periphery. The sound is very thick and very dense, heavily layered by ominous backing vocals and keyboards and some very somber yet evocative string work and acoustic guitar stuff, as well as some very muscular, groove-laden, djenty passages, the type that we would normally and typically expect of the djent movement and of prog metal from the early 2010s. And unsurprisingly, as a result of all of this, this album is often overflowing with some pretty powerful material. Take, for instance, the Gojira-esque progressive death metal guitar and percussive beatdowns of Toxin. An admittedly very short, but devilishly sweet number, filled with some crippling grooves, some super toxic and abrasive vocals, some nice airy guitar work and synthesizers right near the end to add a little splash of color and contrast. Or, for instance, passage Noir, which drawls along at a somewhat intentionally, somewhat monotonous pace, almost unintentionally bringing in some doom metal vibes and atmospheres. It can be a chilling number at times, not just because of the slower pace and the gloomier atmosphere, but also because its lead chorus is simultaneously so triumphant, so bold, so declarative, so oppressive, and also so mournful. There is some really fantastic vocal harmonizing here, emboldened by these nasty and destructive, ham-fisted prog metal grooves. And the way the track closes with those very cold and eerie synthesizers and those very obtuse grooves is just plain fucking fantastic. The two-hit combo that is the back-to-back Sunset Sunrise tracks as well amounts to a 10-minute prog metal banger and perhaps one of the most articulate and expansive and evocative pieces that Vildhjarta have ever conceived. It's punishing, it's epic, it's unpredictable, it's everything you could possibly want from really great modern prog metal. And the same can honestly be said for another track loosely translating to Megapolis' national anthem. It's a shorter track, and there's more influence from cleaner, modern prog rock in the vein of Devin Townsend or Baroness or even the very recent Enslaved EP, but there's also some seriously sick and devastating guitar work that brings to mind some of the wackiest and most inventive material from old-school Periphery. The lead riff in particular, I honestly believe has the ability to rip through the human body as if it were a chainsaw. My lord, what a badass little fucking riff. Now, there are some tracks on the record that resort to some more derivative and one-dimensional kind of djenty guitar chugging, but for the most part, everything is sonically heavy enough, and the performances are still strong enough that I'm not really bothered. For me personally, the bigger issue lies in the album's runtime. At nearly 80 minutes long, it can feel pretty chunky and fatty and unnecessarily bloated, and as a result, a lot of tracks do unintentionally blur together, especially some of the more generic and less creative and savage cuts. The instrumental tracks in particular, like Lavender Haze and Phantom Assassin, can feel pretty unnecessary and irrelevant to the album, as they do rely heavily on some more typical kind of prog metal and djent songwriting. I mean, they're not objectively horrible or incompetent or anything like that, but they are a lot less clever, and if I were a producer on this album, I probably would have strongly recommended cutting them, as well as the second, third, and ninth track on this album, which, again, aren't ineffective, they're just kind of generic and unnecessary. I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 5. It's pretty decent. It can be a little boring and a little uninspired at times. I would say that the first 2 or 3 songs in particular are very, very, very fucking weak, but the stuff that hits hard does legitimately hit hard, on both a sonic and emotional level. It's brutal, it's powerful, it can be pretty inventive and intelligent at times, it's very well produced, very well performed, and I'd have no issue recommending this to anyone who loves modern prog metal, to anyone who loves the djent sound and movement, and to anyone who has been very patiently awaiting for the return of Vildhjarta. Whether or not this album was worth the wait is ultimately not up to me, but I certainly don't regret listening to this album despite my concerns, and I wouldn't mind listening to more of their material in the future, just as long as I don't have to wait, you know, another 10 fucking years. That'd be pretty cool, that'd be pretty swell, just throwing that out there, guys. 3 to 5 is pretty decent. Give it a shot. Fuck it, why not? And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe right here so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.